Okay, great. Well, we are going to get started. So thank you again for joining us. This is our information session, the second information session that we're providing on this Notice of Funds Available for Lasting Affordability Round 2. We'll do quick introductions and then get into around a 30-minute presentation on the fund and the application. So my name is Jacob Noonan. I'm the Special Programs Manager here in the Housing Department at SCAG. My team is overseeing these funds. I'm going to pass it over to Anna.
Thank you, Jacob. My name is Anna Oberdeins. I'm a regional planner on SCAG's housing team. Very excited to see a lot of you being interested in this NOFA 2 call. And I'll give it to Zach to kick us off today.
Thanks, Anna. Good morning, everyone. Zach Ardea, Senior Regional Planner here at SCAG within the Housing Department. Three of us are on the same team rolling out this NOFA Round 2 program. So with that, let's get into it. The agenda for today. So we're anticipating about an hour of your time this morning to go over the NOFA Round 2 program, including a timeline of the application period, the evaluation and awards period, and the performance period as well. We'll also show you how to complete the funding application and outline the application review and evaluation process. And then we'll hold about 15 minutes for questions and answers, and then wrap it up with any outstanding items. So the NOFA program, NOFA Round 2, is funded by the state's Regional Early Action Planning Grants of 2021, or more commonly known as REAP 2.0. REAP 2.0 is intended to achieve transformative planning and implementation activities, including implementing the Regional Sustainable Community Strategy in Connect SoCal. The REAP 2.0 program objectives include accelerating infill development that facilitates housing supply, choice, and affordability, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. Building on the REAP 2.0 program objectives from the last slide, which are repeated on the left here, SCAG created several objectives that are also prioritized in this funding round. And these include supporting transformative planning that realize Connect SoCal, building regional capacity to deliver 6-cycle RHNA goals, representing best practices in VMT reduction, and promoting infill in Connect SoCal priority growth areas. SCAG's REAP 2.0 program includes 3 major program areas: the early program initiatives, the transportation partnership programs, and programs to accelerate transformative housing, also known as PATH program. The PATH program is further divided into 3 funding areas: the Lasting Affordability Program, or NOFA, the Regional Utility Supporting Housing, or RUSH program, and the Housing Infill on Public and Private Lands, or HIP program. The funding that we're here to learn about today and that you're interested in pursuing is offered through the NOFA program, specifically Round 2. This second round of funding within NOFA will make $20 million available to existing affordable housing trust funds and catalyst funds to increase housing supply, choice, and lasting affordability through a mix of products and price ranges, including for households at or below area median income. Eligible applicants will be existing trusts and catalyst funds that are focused on affordability. This means NOFA 2 will not be able to support the creation of new programs. This is because of the limited amount of time left to expend the REAP 2 funds. And so the funding, however, can be used in existing lending programs, such as loan products or other finance tools, including grant programs and debt and equity investment programs in order to finance land or property acquisition, pre-development, permanent bridge and gap financing, and affordable homeownership. This round also includes the potential to issue additional funding should additional funding become available at a later date. Applications received while the call is open will be reviewed for completeness, and all complete applications will be evaluated based on the same criteria that was used for the first NOFA round. The evaluation will be in 2 tiers. Only new applicants that have not previously received funding through the Lasting Affordability Program will be initially considered for funding awards. This tranche of applications is referred to as Tier 1 in the guidelines. So Tier 1 applications are those from new applicants, and those will be considered for funding awards first. Tier 2 applications are those received from applicants who have previously received funding in the first NOFA round. Complete Tier 2 applications will be evaluated and ranked with any remaining Tier 1 applications and added to a contingency list that can be used to consider additional funding awards, again, should additional funding become available. Now, we suspect some questions around how we define a housing trust or catalyst fund. So here's the definition, and it's also included in the application. That is a distinct fund established by a government agency or nonprofit organization that receives ongoing dedicated sources of public or private funding to support the preservation and production of affordable housing and increase opportunities for families and individuals to access decent, affordable homes. The entity can include a city, county, JPA, including council of governments, housing authority, or nonprofit organization. So with that, I will hand it off to Jacob to walk you through how to complete the application and to go a bit over the evaluation criteria.
Thank you so much, Zach. First, let's cover the timeline. So we opened the application period on the 17th. It will run through January 20th. You will need to push submit on your response by 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for your application to be considered on time. So please make note of that. You will need to have that send stamp by 11:59 p.m. on January 20th. This is the second information session that we're holding today, December 3rd. We will be posting our information session, one of them at least online, making that available on our PATH website for viewing at a later date. The evaluation period following the close of the call, we're anticipating that to last the end of January and then into February, with a tentative council meeting date of March 5th to award funds. To be aware, if you are awarded, you must, as an organization, execute the MOU, meet all the requirements, and receive the funding by July 31st of 2026. Or if you're not able to meet these dates, unless there's an extension approved by SCAG, this could jeopardize the funding award. So just for awareness of the timeline, this is due to the expediency of using these funds. Reporting following this date of July 31st, once you receive the funding, you will report on the use of the funds through December 31st of 2026. Oops. So to apply, please visit, if you haven't already done so, scag.ca.gov/PATH. This is our landing page for the PATH program. On this page, you will find information on the round 2. If it doesn't automatically populate, there is here, you'll see this arrow pointing to the Lasting Affordability Program Round 2 tab. If it doesn't automatically populate with the information on the call, go ahead and just click on that tab. It will then provide you with the two tabs, one of which is drop-down menu rather, just how to apply. Under this drop-down, it provides guidance on what's needed for a complete response to this call. This being an application, project budget timeline, and then scope and deliverables. There's 3 project area maps required, a self-certification letter with some attachments and a letter of support. The attachments Anna's going to cover a little later in the presentation, so I'm going to just cover the application itself. But before we get to that, I do want to also show you the second drop down, which is a resources tab. And under that resources tab, you'll find the program guidelines, another link to the program application. This is the same link that's under the how to apply tab. There's also a helpful program submittal checklist. This is a good guidance document for you to use to make sure that you are submitting everything that's needed for a complete application, because again, we will review applications for completeness, and only applications that are complete will be evaluated. There's also links here to the self-certification letter, which is one of the required attachments. There's information on the metrics that you'll be required to collect in the final closeout reporting. There's a template for the MOU that SCAG will execute with your organization. There's information on infill and what infill means. Anna will cover that definition a little later. But it's important to note that the actions and activities related to these funds need to fit within this definition of infill that's provided within the REAP 2 program guidelines. There's also a link to our REAP 2.0 mapping indicator tool, which is a great resource for you to use to generate these maps that are required as part of your complete submittal. And there's instructions and then also some guidance on equitable engagement and letters of support. So jumping into the application itself. So you will need to, as mentioned, submit the application by email. We are asking you to provide all the application and all documents as PDFs to keep the files separate, and to submit those to our email address, which is housing@scag.ca.gov. You can also submit questions to this email. We are monitoring it regularly, but when you are ready to submit your response, you will submit it here. It's acceptable to also provide an email with a document box, a link to a box so that we can just access the files if the files are too large. You can also submit several emails that way. So you have 2 different options for submitting your email, either if the documents are too large to submit as one email. Again, they will need to be submitted on time, and it's a submittal with the the send date being before 11:59 p.m. on January 20th. So as we move into the application itself, it is separated into 4 sections, and then there's a series of attachments. Anna will cover the attachments. So first, I'll walk us through each of these sections in the application. So section 1, these are the terms and signature. It's important this area does need to be signed by someone who's authorized to sign on behalf of your organization to submit the application. A resolution is not required for a complete application. However, it may be required in advance of executing the MOU. But again, no resolution is needed for a complete application. However, the signer does need the authorization for to sign on behalf of your organization. Section 2 prompts you to confirm that your organization and the proposed use of the funds meet the requirements. For eligibility, Zach covered this earlier. It's essentially it's entities that are managing an established housing trust or catalyst fund as defined in the guidelines in the application, and that this can include public housing authorities, joint power authorities, cities, counties, nonprofit organizations, and other organizations. It's not limited. This is a list that includes these entities and others. Importantly, the action, the qualifying criteria is that your organization manages an established housing trust or catalyst fund. Now, in terms of the project meeting the infill definition, again, Anna will cover this later, but I'll just reemphasize because this is very important within the REAP2 funds, that all actions, activities that are these funds will support related to housing, development of housing, affordable housing, are all located within areas that meet the REAP2 infill definition. In section 3, you'll fill out contact information and provide a project description. So we will want a good contact for a person in your organization that we can reach out to if we have any questions, and in order to notify you of your award. In section 3.2, you'll provide the title and describe the service area that your trust is supporting. This area also asks you to estimate your total project costs, provide the amount of funding that you're requesting. The awards are capped at $5 million. You could certainly request less, but there is a cap of $5 million. And then also in this section, you can note any local match or other funding sources that are involved in your trust. There's no requirement for a local match. However, in the evaluation criteria, there's an opportunity for 5 additional points if you are able to include a local match. Also in section 3, you will provide a brief description of your project. It's limited to 500 words or less. In this description, you'll want to include a description of your budget and timeline, scope, deliverables, and the measurable outcomes. The description should also include how these funds will be used to increase affordable housing. Additionally, within this area, you'll also be asked to identify the priority growth areas that are related or included within your service area. You can use our mapping tool in order to create this map. And this, again, is one of those 3 maps that are required for a complete submittal package. Section 4 is the area that will be scored in the applications. This includes 5 criteria based on the REAP2 objectives. First and foremost, which is leading to a transformative significant beneficial impact. Please note that there's about 45% of the score is based on these 3, meeting these 3 objectives. There's also points given for equitable targeted outreach, leveraging partnerships, policy match, building capacity, the ability to complete the project and cost effectiveness, and then prioritizing disadvantaged communities and contributing to regional transformative change. So I'll cover each one of these in the questions that are included under each one of these criterion. But first, just to acknowledge our scoring rubric, we will score each on a 5-point system, and then for areas that are worth 15, we'll just multiply the score by 3. So please note that a score of 0 would automatically disqualify the application. And so as you're filling out your responses to the questions, just be aware that you will need to at least qualify within each one of these responses in order to have a scored application. Also, please note that all projects must align with the program objectives for the REAP 2.0 funding program, meet the definition of a transformative planning and implementation activity, which for shorthand purposes is meeting these program objectives, provide a significant beneficial impact, which would be in the scalability of affordable housing that's delivered in these programs, include targeted equitable outreach, and align in advance the Connect SoCal plan. So with that said, the first category, leading to transformative significant impact, again, this really focuses on the three program objectives of accelerating infill development that facilitates housing supply, choice and affordability, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. Each one of these areas is worth 15% of the total score, for a total of 45 possible points available in this area. The questions in this area all relate to these specific objectives. The first one relating to infill and accelerating infill and housing supply, and in relation additionally to supporting the sixth cycle regional housing needs allocation, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and reducing vehicle miles traveled. Section 4.2 is focused on equitable targeted outreach. There is 10 points possible here, focused on a commitment to continuing outreach and engagement, especially with disadvantaged and historically underserved communities. So these questions focus in on your organization's experience engaging residents in disadvantaged and historically underserved communities. And if your organization has limited experience, there is an opportunity to discuss how your organization could gain that experience in the completion of this project and the expansion of your fund. The second question in this area is focused on your organization's experience engaging community organizations and community leaders and members of disadvantaged and historically underserved communities, and especially ascertaining their input on shaping your project outcomes and programming. Section 4.3 is focused on leveraging partnerships, on policy match, and building local capacity. Again, these areas aren't required. It's not required to have a local match. However, this is, as I noted earlier, is an area where if you had local match, this could gain 5 points within this area. So these questions are really centered around your existing and prior local policy commitments, that your organization's completed plans and policies, ordinances, or the otherwise work and efforts that you've accomplished to date. This could also include any other direct grants or local funding, philanthropic commitments that your organization has received to date. Additionally, under 4.3.2, you would be prompted to talk about your partnerships, either through your other funding sources or your existing partnership commitments from other organizations, and the ability that your organization would have to leverage these funds to increase or gain additional investments. 4.3.3 focuses on the ability to complete the project and prompts you to describe how your organization, the experience that your organization has had in completing similar projects, and your plan for ensuring that the project is completed on time and budget. Again, noting that July 31st date as the date that you would need to have all of your required documents submitted and approved by SCAG in order to receive the lump sum grant award, in order to not risk losing that award just due to timeliness. Section 4.4 focuses on prioritizing disadvantaged communities. All projects do not need to include priority populations. However, they must demonstrate that they support priority populations. And this section does relate to another one of the required maps showing the local priority population areas. Questions within this area focus in on, first of all, the first question, 4.4.1, is developing that map of SB 535 disadvantaged communities, SCAG communities of concern, TCAC and HCD opportunity areas, and then AB 1550 communities. Question 4.4.2 prompts you to describe how this proposed use of the funds, this proposed project, would benefit local priority populations, and how the project aims to address and repair historic or current inequities related to housing security, housing affordability, or reducing displacement or expanding access to higher resource communities for housing. Section 4.5 focuses in on the project, the funds, contributions to regional transformative change. And there's a focus within the REAP2 funding to really center on transformative change that scales up production of housing, that really helps us to address our housing supply and affordability challenges in Southern California. Also, this area is centered around achieving our regional goals related to the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, Connect SoCal, and just in general, creating more availability and opportunity for housing across Southern California. This section is also related again to one of these required maps. This the map that I mentioned earlier related to the priority growth areas. Importantly, your focus area does not need to include priority growth areas, but that it's beneficial. And in this section, you'll be able to describe how the PGAs relate to your focus area, but your focus area's service does need to fit within the REAP 2.0 definition of infill. So questions within this area relate to 4.5.1, scaling housing supply, and talking about how the use of these funds would be a transformative approach to advancing and expanding conditions necessary to scale housing, supply, choice, and affordability locally, and in relation to the greater Southern California region. 4.5.2 focuses in on regional impact and prompts you to discuss the geographic impact of this project and how these funds could relate to changes in a broader perspective. Also, how this relates to and implements our sustainable communities strategy, which is included within the Connect SoCal plan, and definitely in reducing greenhouse gas and vehicle miles traveled, and how this type of use of funds could be applied in other similar built contexts throughout the region, and how this project's impact relates to reducing greenhouse gases, vehicle travel reductions beyond the project area, and how these changes could be beneficial to the region in general. So that wraps up the application. We will have some time for questions. And again, we do have office hours that we'll cover in a moment here. But for now, let me turn it over to Anna, who will take us through the attachments. Take it away, Anna.
Thank you, Jacob. I know that was a lot of information, everyone. You can find it all in the application document on the resources webpage that we just showed you before. And I will walk you through the attachments that are required to have a complete application as well, to finish our talking time off. The first one is a budget, timeline, scope, and deliverables spreadsheet. I will show you a bit more on that later in this presentation. The 3 project area maps that Jacob mentioned that are part of the sections that you have to complete in the application and really demonstrate how you fit into those sections. We require a letter of support. There's no set template for this letter, but we do offer some guidance on how this letter can look and which organizations can provide you with one related to this call. And lastly, there's a self-certification letter needed that you will need to complete some statements and disclosures. And there's also a list of required documents attached to this attachment. A bit of inception there. The first one is the budget and scope Excel. This Excel has 2 tabs, so really make sure to complete both of them. In tab 1, there's the budget and timeline that we're asking you to complete. And on this one, I really want to highlight that this NOFA will only fund the lump sum that is used to expand the existing fund or trust. It's highlighted in this spreadsheet, so you can see it in the yellow cell when you open this Excel file. The other information we ask you to complete is to really help us assess the feasibility of the project and the timeline and how it's manageable within the expenditure period. On the second tab, we ask to complete all the steps that are required to get you to requesting the lump sum funding from SCAG. So really write down every separate task there and make sure to include a measurable deliverable. We entered some template tasks in these documents. If you need different tasks or other steps, you're very welcome to change them according to your organization's needs. Then there's the 3 maps, the first being an infill map. This can either be a visual map or a clear written narrative of the project area with boundaries clearly defined. If you are applying for a fund or a trust that has a service area that goes beyond infill, really make sure to include a clear narrative that all the projects that you will be funding with these funds are limited to these infill areas based on the REAP 2.0 infill definition. There's some guidance on how to build a map in the resources section on the webpage as well. And I will go over the infill definition because it's a very important requirement for this fund. So as definition, we use that the area consists of unused or underutilized lands. And it's also within existing development patterns, and that it is or will be accessible to destinations and daily services by transit, walking, or bicycling. And additionally, it needs to be located in either A or B, with A being an urban center, urban corridor, or area with transit supportive densities, or B, an established community that meets all of the following criteria. That the area consists of previously consisted of qualified urban uses, that the area is predominantly surrounded by parcels that are developed or were previously developed with qualified urban uses, and that no parcel within or adjoining the area is classified as agricultural or natural and working lands. In the infill guidance document that we share with you on the webpage, you can find this definition as well, so you can assess if it meets if your area meets the criteria. The second map that we ask you to provide is the priority population map. To build this map, you can use the REAP 2.0 mapping indicator tool. There's a link in the resources section on the webpage, and there's also some guidance on how to use this tool. When you open the link, it immediately opens the mapping area, so you can find your location. And then for the priority population map, you will map the layers TCAG, HCD opportunity boundary, communities of concern, disadvantaged communities, and the AB 1550 communities onto your service area. Your project does not need to be within these areas, but using the map and the information you include in the corresponding section in the application really demonstrate how your project betters these communities of concern. The last map we require is the priority growth area. On the same mapping tool, there's another layer. It's called priority growth area, so it should not be too hard to find. You can use that one layer to map this required map. And again, echoing what's said before, the project area does not need to be within these priority growth areas, but you can use it to demonstrate how it supports the regional goals in these areas, and noting again that it should be within the infill area. The last attachment that we require for a complete package of applications is the subrecipient self-certification letter. This letter really helps SCAG assess if the organization and the projects meet all eligibility requirements and that you are able to receive and administer the requested NOFA 2 funds in a manageable way. There's a number of statements in this letter that you need to complete and also some disclosures to check. But one of the important parts of it is also a list of documents. There's some required documentation that you need to include in your application package as well. These are documents like governance documents, financial structure, underwriting criteria, some sample pro formas and example projects. Make sure to review those required documentations and include them in your package so we can assess the capacity and evaluate risks and make sure that you're really able to implement the proposed project that you're requesting funding for. SCAG will review in this evaluation of the NOFA this list of projects on completeness. So I do want to note that any awarded proposal does not immediately mean that this list of the documentation is also approved for issuing the lump sum payment by SCAG. Now, I know that was a lot of information, and we really welcome you to spend some more time with the documentation that we have on the webpage. We'll have some time for questions after this session today, and there's more ways to ask questions that Zach will tell you more about right now.
Thanks, Anna. So I want to emphasize the resources available to you all. So we have today's session, it is recorded, and so we will be posting this recording on the PATH landing page on the SCAG website. So that will be available shortly. We also have weekly office hours starting next week on December 9th, running through January 13th, which is 1 week before applications are due. We are available every Tuesday and Thursday, except for Christmas. But please reach out to us, schedule time. These are one-on-one consultations. We are happy to answer your specific questions on your applications. You can share screen, walk us through the things you're having trouble with. And our job is to help you prepare successful applications. All right, so that's available to you. If our schedules, our availability for office hours do not align with yours, we have the inbox. Housing, I think it's on here somewhere. Housing at SCAG, there it is. Housing at scag.ca.gov at the bottom of the slide, bottom right. So feel free to send us written questions, and we'll be sure to respond to you as soon as possible. For where you can schedule office hours, again, it'll be on the PATH landing page up on our website. You'll want to scroll down to technical assistance within the NOFA Round 2 tab, and this is what you'll find. And you'll want to click on that schedule office hours link. That's an active link. That'll take you to a third-party site where you will be able to sign up for specific time slots. All right, so that's a bit about the resources we have available for now. I think we have a couple of FAQs we want to share before we get into your questions. Jacob?
Thanks so much, Zach. So we do have a couple of questions that we prepared just to inspire other questions from you all today. But also, I have been taking some time to answer questions that have been dropped in the chat. So if you do have questions, feel free to continue to go ahead and drop those questions in the chat, or if you're inspired, you can raise your hand. We can unmute you so that you can ask your question live. So While you're typing in those questions, let me just cover a couple of these initial ones that we thought would be beneficial. One of which, is a question of, can I apply on behalf of an organization that's managing a trust or a fund? So no, an organization such as, for instance, if you were a city that is part of a Joint Powers Authority trust fund, a JPA trust fund, you, the city, would not be able to apply on behalf of that trust fund, for instance. It would need to be the JPA trust fund that is the applicant on the filing the response. And then the second question is, can I request reimbursement for activities to build, improve, or expand a funding tool, grant program, otherwise, or a trust or a fund? And in our round one of funding, we were able to make this available. We had more time to expend these REAP $2, but given the short timeline, we're not able to fund those types of projects. So this round two of funding is centered on supporting existing trust fund funding pools that are managed by an existing trust or catalyst fund. So we would not be able to fund any kind of activities that build or improve the fund itself. So those are our initial questions, but we are available. We have about 15 minutes left to do some to take some questions, provide some answers. Looking at the chat, I see that we do have at least one additional question that's been added, and then I can cover the responses that I've provided to the other questions that have been put in the chat for us all. So this question is, if I'm a nonprofit that receives CalHome and CDBG funds to develop affordable housing, would this make me a Catalyst Fund organization? I think the answer here is it's going to depend on the structure of your organization. And if you meet that definition for a housing trust, you'll notice in the guidelines and application, we don't independently define Catalyst Fund. What a Catalyst Fund is for purposes of this lending program, it is a housing trust fund. The difference is that Catalyst funds in their use of funds typically comes early in the process. They could be used for pre-development or for other activities in advance of having a fully defined project. So I would recommend if you are using home funds, CDBG dollars, these are regular funding sources that are coming into your fund, that you review the definition and see if you fit. And certainly you can schedule office hours with us or ask us a question specific to your organization if you'd like to further confirmation of whether you would qualify. Great. We have quite a few questions here coming in. So I'm just going to kind of run down the list here. So can you expand a bit on what is considered an eligible activity for eligible applicants with an existing trust fund? Could you give some examples of eligible activities? So in this particular case, the eligible activity is a funding strategy or funding tool that is available for lasting affordability. So this could be a grant program, it could be a loan program, it could be debt and equity investment strategies that are with the end result being that you're securing lasting affordability. That is the eligible activity. I know that that's fairly broad. It's intentionally so that we can create an opportunity to really fund or look at funding innovative, transformative programs. So we didn't want to be too narrow in that eligible activities, but certainly if you still have questions about what activities are eligible, feel free to book some office hours with us or send a question to housing@scag.ca.gov. Deadline for applications, that is, you will have to have a send stamp on your email that you've submitted to us to the housing inbox by 11:59 Pacific Standard Time on January 20th. Would an existing and eligible trust be able to apply for a new loan program that doesn't currently exist or issue loan grants? This is possible. However, that program, that new loan program would need to be fully established. You would need to be able to provide all of the required documents that are listed in our self-certification letter. So this includes your underwriting, your program guidelines, the enabling documents from your board that's formed this loan program. So no, you wouldn't need to have already issued loans, but you would need to be fully established and ready to do so. Can you clarify what a catalyst fund is? So again, a catalyst fund has the same definition as a housing trust fund. We recognize that catalyst funds oftentimes can be used earlier on in the funding process. And then a question about the service area. Can a service area be comprised of multiple individual properties which are not contiguous? Yes, this is possible. A service area can also be as general as a county area, or even the Southern California region. The important aspect of the area is that for use of these funds, any of the projects any activities that you're use these funds for must fit within the definition of infill. So, your service area, for instance, could be the service area of Riverside County, for example. Any properties within that area that fit the infill definition. Another question here, are there any components of the round 2 application that were not in the round 1 application? There are. The components that were not in round 1 include the documents in our self-certification letter, that the enabling documents for the establishing the fund, the lending program, the underwriting guidelines, and the program guidelines. These were all documents that we later required in advance of issuing the funds themselves. But in round 1, we hadn't made these a requirement of the complete application. Again, because of timing and for the expediency of issuing these funds before the program deadline, we are requiring that the complete application include those documents so that we can establish that the fund is ready and available to receive funds. Let's see, other questions here. Can you repost the response to the mobility wallet? Yeah, well, verbally, let me just respond back that at this time, these funds in round 2, we are funding housing trust funds and catalyst funds and the expansion of existing lending programs only. So a mobility wallet I don't believe that would be a qualified use. But if you review the guidelines in the application and feel that perhaps it does fit within the area, I would recommend scheduling office hours with us we can work through that with you and see if there in fact is an angle that a mobility wallet would be eligible under these funding, under the criteria for. But I think just on its face, I don't believe that would be an eligible use. The expenditure deadline. What is the expenditure deadline? This is a really good question. So these funds in general do need to be expended. REAP 2 dollars need to be expended by June 30th of 2026 rather. We are extending that deadline slightly to July 31st of 2026. What expenditure for purposes of the REAP 2 program means is that you have provided all documentation to SCAG so that we are able to clear your program to receive the lump sum grant award, and that you've received that lump sum grant award. So that needs to happen by July 31st of 2026. Now, once you receive the grant award, and that's considered expenditure for purposes of the REAP 2 grant program and receiving the money. But then there's an additional date that you must use these funds in eligible projects, to fund programs that are identified in your in your finance tool guidelines. That must be done by December 31st of 2031. So you do have 5 years in order to fully use the funds that you receive after July 31st of 2026. So those are the two important deadlines, I think, to pay attention to, is the date that you must receive your grant funding, which is July 31st of 2026, and you must use that funding, have that funding in projects that are under development by December 31st of 2031. Question here is, if the trust bylaw names an affiliate organization as the trust manager, can the trust manager apply for the funds, or does the housing trust need to apply? I think that the answer here would be that if the trust manager is authorized by the housing trust, then that trust manager would be able to sign the documents. And then let me know if there's further questions regarding that. So I think the important aspect for us is that the signer on the application does have authorization from the organization to sign on their behalf. Any guidance on whether and how CEQA applies to this program? So we're funding these, we're issuing these grant funds at a programmatic level to support an existing housing trust or catalyst fund. We're not directly supporting or funding specific housing projects. So hopefully that helps provide some insight on this question regarding CEQA and how that could apply. We definitely want you to encourage you to look at this with your counsel, but we don't have any specific requirements related to environmental review and CEQA in relation to receiving the grant. Does the housing trust need to be the owner of the land that the project is to be built on? It does not. These, again, we're funding a financing tool at the programmatic level. So our funding will go into an established financing tool that has its underwriting program policies and guidelines, has been enabled by the organization, and is for all purposes ready to receive the funds and to issue these funds under your proposed program or existing program guidelines. This could be done in the form of a grant or a loan to an organization that owns the site, or that has some kind of an agreement, development agreement on the site. But your trust fund does not need to be the owner of the land. These are great questions. Thank you. So definitely keep raising questions if there's still some questions out there. I think right now I'll take a moment and go back and read, kind of summarize some of the earlier questions that were I responded to in text. So just to clarify again, that these funds are they only support housing trust funds and catalyst funds. That the applicants that were not awarded, that had applied to round 1 but were not awarded, are eligible to apply in this round 2. And those applications, any responses that we receive from an applicant that was not awarded in round 1, would be considered part of the tier 1 in this round of funding. And then 14 applications did receive funding from round 1. In that initial round, it was worth $45 million. We did have 28 responses submitted. 22 of those responses were evaluated, and the result was 14 funding awards. Okay, well, it looks like it seems like that has exhausted our questions that we've received. We just have a few minutes left here in our information session. I think I'll just take a moment and scroll back 2 slides here to remind folks that we do have weekly office hours, that there's a means of scheduling those office hours on our website, that we do have our housing at scag.ca.gov as an email source for questions, and that we look forward to helping support you in your ability to file a complete application and answer any questions that you have. Additionally, we will be compiling all of the questions that we receive in these information sessions and provide those as a list of questions and answers on our website shortly. So with that, let me looking to Anna to see if you have any final thoughts, comments to share with the group as we wrap up.
Nothing for me, thank you.
And Zach, any last words?
I think we covered a lot, but I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your day, join us, learn about this NOFA round 2, and we look forward to speaking with you in consultations and looking forward to reviewing your applications.
Great.
So first question, are you using the same definition for catalyst fund as the one you posed in the webinar for a trust? Yes, a catalyst fund, in our understanding, we've defined it the same as a trust. The difference in a catalyst fund is when the funds are used. Typically, they're used early on in the program for pre-development funds or as early action funds. There's other opportunities within catalyst funds. I know that I've seen funds used within gap financing as well, but we are essentially using the same definition for a catalyst fund. It's just and when the funds are used. Next question here. The application says new or existing funds. If new funds are no longer being considered, can a city define an existing inclusionary housing fund as a catalyst fund? I think that that's possible. You'll want to look and see how your fund meets that definition as for a trust fund. Now, if you are an inclusionary housing fund, I'm assuming that you're receiving regular payments in regards to inclusionary fees that are being aggregated in your fund, and those funds are being used to create housing. And so I think that I don't want to say yes directly because I think that there's a lot of nuances, but that if you apply the fund, I think that there's a possibility that would be a acceptable housing trust fund. All right. Next question from City of Pomona. 5 questions. Thank you. What evidence is required of an established fund, resolution, etc.? Is a recently adopted catalyst fund acceptable? Pomona is seeking to establish a catalyst fund by December 15th. Congratulations. At the next meeting with additional match dollars from other sources. I think that if I recall right, in our letter of our self-certification letter, we do require the adopting documents establishing the fund. So that in this case would be that if it's by council resolution that this fund would be adopted, that we would go ahead and recognize that as that evidence. And then additional match dollars from other sources. I think that I think that we could be available for questions, or if you wanted to book some time with us at one of our sessions, we'd be happy to go into further detail on this. But very exciting opportunity that for the City of Pomona coming up. Let me jump down and take a question from Kelly, and then I'll come back up to question 2. See, Kelly writes that we're considering applying to expand our successful low-interest ADU loan program. Can we expect prevailing wage exemptions for single units on single family lots. We don't stipulate prevailing wage in this funding source. So it's really a very open-ended, fluid funding source. So I think that this fits within your program. Again, so we're not requiring or stipulating prevailing wage within this funding, although, of course, it could be contingent on other funding sources that you have in your project. Coming back up to Pomona's second question, clarifying that a specific development project need not be identified, and SCAG funds can be deployed in a future NOFA that meets the deadline. The award revolves in perpetuity beyond first use by the city. And C, lending doesn't have to be only 100% affordable housing, but some level of affordability below market. So yes, these are very astute reads of the program. So one, I think it's important that we recognize that what SCAG is funding through this lending program, through this round, is programmatic. So we're funding a trust fund. You do not need to have specific projects identified that the funding would be used in. You would just need to have your fund established and meet all of the criteria to submit a complete response and to be evaluated under the criteria and place a competitive score in the criteria. We anticipate that projects won't, within the timeline of these funds, you most likely wouldn't have projects that, unless you had shovel-ready projects right now, you wouldn't have projects necessarily identified that would need the funding immediately. So no, you don't need to have specific projects identified. The funds do revolve, and so there is a perpetuity requirement on these funds being used as designed in the program with the securing lasting affordability. And any proceeds that come back from these funds, loan proceeds, interest, would also have that applied to it. I think that this is a good point to highlight as well, that the lending does not need to apply to 100% affordable housing projects, that it does need to capture a level of affordability. In our criteria, however, you'll notice that there is heavy weight and emphasis placed on programs that are achieving affordability and housing supply. So you'll want to consider that in your application and the design of your program, or evaluating the program that you have as if it would be competitive for these funds. But yes, that is true, that you don't need to be a 100% affordable housing program, but you do need to be securing lasting affordability.
I do want to add, Jacob, just a point about the funding must be obligated to qualifying projects within 5 years of the expenditure period. Is that right? So by December of 2031?
Yes, thank you. So yes, so funds would have to be expended within 5 years. That's an important date to be aware of. So by December 31st of 2031, you would need to have the funds in projects. I'm going to jump down and take a question here from County of Orange, and then we'll come back up. So can applicants submit more than one application? For example, can an applicant submit one application requesting $5 million for a specific project and a separate application requesting $5 million for an existing lending program? No, in this funding round, we are only allowing one application per applicant. So there is a cap of $5 million. It is one application. If you submit an application for less than the $5 million, you're still bound to one application. So coming up, question 3, reduced awards from an applicant's requested amount. Yes. So in our prior funding rounds, we did have an opportunity to fund some projects in part based on the amount of funding that we had available and the scoring resulting from our evaluations. So we did want to hold this opportunity available as partial funding awards. both initially in this first round and then also for awareness off the contingency list that we'll be developing if there's a potential as we get closer to the expenditure period for these REAP 2 funds, which is for all shapes and purposes for the program, June 30th of this year of 2026, we could have additional available funds that we would look at providing additional awards with. And in those additional awards, we could also look at partial funding awards. So a couple of different ways that we might look at partial awards. And then what's the expectation for engagement in implementing a Catalyst fund? Is it meant to be equitable on how we roll out the NOFA and who's asked to apply? That's a really good question as well. So we do within the criteria, we do have there's 10 points associated with your outreach, and it's focused on the outreach that would be related to creating the fund and also the outreach that your organization is doing in sustaining your fund and in sustaining your trust funds activities. So it is important that there is engagement and that engagement is ongoing in your Catalyst fund or your trust funds implementation. And last question here. Is SCAG expecting prevailing wage applicability, or is it open to specific statutory exemptions for affordable housing? Yes, these funds don't have any stipulations on them. So prevailing wage may come into play through other funding sources that you have in your capital stack. But from these funds, no, we don't have any requirements for prevailing wage. You're very welcome. Happy to reduce anxiety. So again, we do have available office hours starting this next week. If that's a way to answer additional questions and to help folks reduce any anxiety that they may have. We are also watching our housing at scag.ca.gov email line. So definitely drop us questions there. We will be taking all questions that we receive and providing responses online in a generalized way in an effort to provide equal information to all. Any last words, Anna or Zach, as we get close to time here?
I just want to note that everyone that already did book an appointment with us for the office hours, you'll be receiving an email from me very soon this week. So you have a place to go meet us online.
Wonderful. Zach.
That's all for me.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. It's been a pleasure. It's always so exciting when we're releasing new funding sources. So looking forward to all the great ideas that come in. And thank you all. Really
Thanks,
appreciate it.
everyone.
Thank you.